about. The topic for this session is the history of collecting South Asian contemporary art market and connoisseurship. The moderator will be Yamini Mehta, South Asian modern and contemporary art, Christies, London. The speakers we have now are Deepak Ananth, faculty at Beaux Art, France. Rashid Rana, artist, Pakistan. Farooq Sobhan, president at Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, and Fabio Rossi, director, Rossi and Rossi Gallery, London. I hope you enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Great, great. That was a wonderful first session. Thank you. That was a wonderful first session that we had with my colleague Deepak. And I'm Yamini. I would like to thank you all for coming this morning to the panel discussion. And most of all, I'd like to thank Rajiv and Nadia Samdani and the Samdani Art Foundation for inviting us to be here and to create this wonderful space and environment, which is a first-time endeavor for Bangladesh and for the international art world to come and see what's happening in this exciting art scene. I'm especially delighted to introduce our very exciting and diverse panel of an international outlook within South Asia. Spanning the forces that make up the art world, we have the voices of an esteemed collector, a long-standing gallery that deals in cutting-edge contemporary artists from the region, and an international curator who has made a tremendous mark on the consciousness of the Western world with one of the seminal shows in Indian contemporary art. And last but never least, one of the leading contemporary leading contemporary artists who happens to be based in South Asia. And Rashid and I have this running joke. He's international. He's Canadian, he's Indian, he's Pakistani. He's of the world. Without further ado, let me introduce to you my fellow panelists as we place this lens of internationalism over the larger South Asia and let you know what is in store for Bangladesh. Mr. Farooq Sobhan is a former Bangladeshi diplomat, ambassador to China, India, Malaysia, and former foreign minister of Bangladesh, foreign secretary of Bangladesh. And currently he runs the Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, which is a private enterprise think tank, and serves on the Samdani Art Foundation as a trustee, as well as on the advisory committee of the Dhaka Art Summit. Mr. Sobhan has been an active supporter of the arts and has built one of the most renowned private collections in Bangladesh. We have my esteemed colleague from Europe, Deepak Ananth, is an art historian at the École des Beaux-Arts in Normandy. He's written on a number of publications regarding both European artists and European influence within South Asia, as well as on South Asian artists. His curatorial projects include exhibitions of contemporary French art in Thresholds, New Delhi, Surrealismo, Rio de Janeiro, and certainly contemporary Indian art, Indian Summer, École des Beaux-Arts in 2005, the first major presentation of contemporary Indian art on the European continent. Currently, Deepak is working on an exhibition in Rome on urbanism in India and the Europalia exhibition coming up for 2013. Then we have Fabio Rossi, the director of the gallery Rossi and Rossi, based in London. He's been a long-standing collector, dealer in Asian art, Tibetan, Himalayan, Southeast Asian art, and more recently, in 2005, has taken on and developed a gallery program for contemporary Asian artists, spanning from Iran to Indonesia, and working specifically with Tibetan contemporary artists and Pakistani contemporary artists, such as Naiza Khan, Faiza Bhatt, artists working in America who are of Indian origin, Jayashree Abhichandani and Chitra Ganesh, along with Tibetan artists such as Gade and formerly Gokar Gyatso, along with many others. And we have Rashid Rana, who is certainly a leading light in the field, is working on a show and has just arrived from his opening of a dual solo show in Kemold Gallery in Bombay, as well as Chatterjee and Lal Gallery, and has recently taken on representation by Listen Gallery and is working on a major retrospective of his work with the Mohata Palace in Karachi. And he's served as a curator, as a professor at Beacon House University, and he is certainly one of the best people to speak about Pakistan and the development of the art field in Pakistan. We'll start with Mr. Sobhan, who, in a sense, has been one of the stalwart collectors and taste formers in this field in Bangladesh. In beginning 40 years ago, I believe, is when you first started collecting in this field. Would you give us a perspective of what the collecting field was like when you first started? What your perspectives have been? How did you find collecting, and how is it possible to collect in an area where there isn't as much infrastructure and to develop that further?
Thank you, Yamini. Good morning and assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm frankly both delighted and relieved to see that so many of you have taken the trouble to be here. I thought I might well be speaking to an empty hall, but obviously that is not the case. I'm also especially delighted to see, and I'll mention 4 names in the audience: Munir, Kalidas, Syed Jahangir, and my friend Shaju, because my experience and inspiration really in starting to collect in many ways is directly traceable to them. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Shaju opened his art gallery in 1973, and I was a regular visitor. Of course, in those days, one was a pretty impoverished diplomat, so that kind of determined what you could or couldn't afford to buy. But in those days, there really weren't all that many people, as indeed we were reminded by Syed Jahangir, among the Bangladeshis who were interested in buying art. A lot of the artists depended on foreigners, visitors, diplomats from abroad. My buying was therefore determined by principally 3 things. One was, of course, the price factor. The second was, seeing what I liked, and I liked Munir and I liked Kalidas, and so I'm, I suppose, one of those who has a lot of their early works. Munir, of course, made a very important contribution when he organized, as I recall, the first print workshop. I think that must have been Munir 78, 79, around that time. And I was thrilled. I remember a substantial part of what was then my collection was all acquisitions made as a result of that print workshop done by Munir. In fact, if memory holds good, I bought up virtually everything at that time. because it was so affordable. I think they were selling their prints out of that workshop at the princely sum of 200 or 300 takas. Today, as most of us are aware, you can't get a sandwich for that. So, and in those days, you could buy a painting, so that was, or at least print. I think the other three things I want to perhaps stress is I felt, even in those early days, that as a diplomat, perhaps there was no better way of showcasing Bangladesh than through its art. And I was reminding Syed Jahangir that he was director of the Shilpakala